Hi everyone, and welcome to this week's Gradcracker webinar, where I'm delighted to be joined by Colas Rail. For those of you who don't know Colas Rail, they're one of Europe's leading suppliers of railway infrastructure services, constructing and renewing all forms of railways across Europe and the UK. Colas Rail have been working with Gradcracker for the last 9 years, and I'm excited to be able to tell you, our audience, all about who they are, what they do, and allay some misconceptions about working in the rail industry. Today, we are joined by Kirsty, Dan, Lena, and Sarah to tell us more about their graduate schemes, what it's like to work at Colas, and how to be successful in their recruitment process. So let's dive in. Firstly, let's start by meeting Kirsty. So hi, Kirsty.
Hi.
Could you start by telling our audience a little bit more about your role at Colas Rail?
Yes. So my official title for Colas Rail is Career and Development Manager, but as the majority of my role is actually focused around our early careers programs. So that's our graduate programs and our apprenticeship programs. So as part of that, I get involved all the way from the beginning stages, so looking at our attraction and recruitment, and then I work with graduates all the way through their scheme right until they finish, and then often afterwards as well, when they go through potentially other qualifications afterwards or chartership. So so very heavily involved in the graduate scheme.
So you're the person that our graduates and anyone applying will be the point of contact and will help them all the way through.
Yes, I'm the face of the graduate program, but I work in a much bigger team of various other people who also have involvement in the schemes as well.
Fab. And could you tell us more about what Colas Rail actually do, Kirsty?
Yes, so you actually summed it up really well at the beginning. But just to kind of go from that, really, I think one of the main things about Colas Rail, which is kind of different from a lot of other organisations in the rail industry, is that actually we're quite diverse in what we do, and we're involved in quite a number of different activities within rail. So that might be from kind of infrastructure works, maintenance and upgrades, to installing tram systems in city centres such as Birmingham. We're also a freight and a plant operator as well. So lots of different things that we're involved in, which in turn gives great opportunities for the people that work for us, especially those kind of entering their careers either in the industry as an apprentice or a graduate, and it gives you the opportunity to really find the role and the part of the industry that kind of makes you tick. So you know, people, and this is why so many people kind of find themselves having a career for life in rail, because there's so many different opportunities, and the brilliance of our company is that we're so broad that we're able to facilitate that.
Yes, absolutely. And like you're saying, different areas, but also different localities. You know, Colas Rail is a big organisation. There's lots of opportunities for growth across the business, not just in the UK, which we will touch upon a little bit later on as well, won't we, Kirsty? So can you tell us about Colas Rail's future plans and growth, and any initiatives within the business that you'd like to sort of explore a little bit more?
Yeah, so with the railway industry, one of the great things about it is, and obviously this in turn kind of turns to Colas Rail, is that it's ever evolving and changing. So we are always working on kind of new and exciting projects and new different initiatives. So there's lots of different things to get involved in. So yes, Colas Rail have a really kind of ambitious and sustainable growth plan for the coming years, and that involves lots of, you know, high profile works, but we're also currently doing lots of high profile projects at the moment. So things like kind of prep works for H2, and we work on the Midland Metro Alliance as well. So that's the tram upgrades in Birmingham. So any of you joining who are currently based in Birmingham, I'm sure that you'll be aware of the Midland Metro Alliance and the tram extensions. So yeah, that's definitely one of the benefits of the rail industry, is that it's constantly evolving. There's loads of different things that you can get involved in. And in terms of kind of initiatives within the company, there's some really great work around kind of EDI and sustainability. Sarah will touch on that later. So lots of great projects around that. So it's constantly moving and evolving. It's a fast-paced industry, so you'll never get bored.
Yeah, a really exciting time to join Colas Rail.
Yeah, definitely.
Fantastic. And to go on to that then, before we kind of go and meet our grads and what they've been doing so far, can you tell us about the opportunities for graduates at Colas Rail?
Yeah, so in a nutshell, we have 3 separate graduate programs. So keeping it really simple, we've got a Future Leaders program, which is essentially a management program, and it's a fast track to management and leadership positions in the business. And we've got great examples all the way through our management hierarchies of people who've come through that scheme. But we have also got an engineering program as well, and a commercial program. So for those that are sort of less familiar with commercial, that's the route to becoming a quantity surveyor. I say that because commercial kind of covers a whole host of different things. In terms of when we sort of recruit, we recruit all year round, so we always have live vacancies, and you can go onto Gradcracker and you can always see what we've got live at the moment. We've got some really good opportunities in Birmingham at the moment, but our main campaign kicks off sort of in the next 4 to 6 weeks, so keep an eye out. You'll see all of our different opportunities that are coming up, and as Sophie said earlier, lots of different opportunities across the UK in all of those 3 different schemes.
Fantastic. Yeah, so right now I think there's about 7 different live roles on the company hub, and if you do want to be alerted for future ones, make sure that you get following Colas Rail on Gradcracker, and then we'll send you an email a day that those roles go live, so we'll definitely keep you informed. So kind of going on to locations, I know you've mentioned a couple of kind of key projects, so like HS2 and the Midland Metro Alliance. In terms of the different locations that you operate in, where could the graduates be based, and how do they kind of identify where they might want to go during the recruitment process?
Yeah, so we would discuss with you throughout the process. We always ask, whether you're flexible with kind of relocating, etc., whether you're looking for a role in a specific place. And when we put our adverts out, we advertise for a particular location, so you'll know where you're applying to, which is helpful. Geographically, we're really spread across the UK, so we have lots of different roles in various different locations. We've got graduates in London, Essex, Kent, Bristol, Swindon, Birmingham, York, Doncaster, Manchester, all over. So we are, and it depends on what kind of area of rail you might have an interest in. If you don't have a preference, then you can kind of be more driven by your location preference. If you have a kind of interest in a particular area, say freight, for example, then kind of tend to be more Midlands focused for that. But you can find out loads of information on our website as well. So we have everything on there, and you can see kind of a map of where we are and where the different projects are based.
Brilliant. And I know kind of before we got on this call, I know the international and national opportunities that you kind of have and what students could get involved in has broadened out a little bit, hasn't it, recently? So can you touch upon how a graduate might go about working in Europe, for example, if they joined you?
Yeah, so I suppose one thing that we didn't mention at the beginning is when it comes to Colas Rail, we're part of a much bigger group. So we're Colas Rail in the UK, but that's part of Colas Rail, which is a global organisation. So there's lots of opportunity for you to be able to kind of look at broadening your career overseas if that's what interests you. So I guess if I take a couple of examples of where people have kind of taken international placements whilst they've been on the graduate programme, we had 2 graduates who went over to Morocco looking at high speed rail over there, which is obviously a great opportunity. And we also sent 2 of our graduates over to France to understand more about urban railway, because they are kind of leading over there in that. So really understanding what it is and bringing that back to the UK so that we can kind of learn best practice and understand better how we can kind of work together. So they're just 2 examples that kind of spring to mind of opportunities that graduates have had whilst they're on their scheme. But for us, this is joining us as a graduate is part of a much longer career with Colas Rail. So it's not just that you're going to do 2 years, it extends far beyond that. And looking at opportunities internationally once you've completed your scheme is again another option for you. And what opportunities they look like again goes back to what I was saying about new projects are won, different contracts, different countries that we work in. So it's kind of keep your eyes open if that's what you're interested in. And there's as part of our performance development review process, there's always opportunity for you to be able to highlight your kind of intentions and speak with your line manager about this. So there are lots of opportunities, but definitely over the last few years we've really seen those grow. There's a lot more for people who are joining us.
Great. Thank you very much, Kirsty. I think there's loads of things that you touched upon there. Just, as a graduates, you're kind of even if they do go internationally, you're trusting them to bring back knowledge to the UK, which just shows the respect that you have for your early careers cohorts. So I think that's really lovely. And like you said, it's always like a two-way conversation about where you might want to go. And I think that just sets us up really nicely to kind of come and meet our graduates now. So thank you so much for that introduction, Kirsty. We're going to meet the rest of our panel. So we are joined by Dan and Lena, who have recently joined Colas Rail on their graduate scheme, but we're also joined by Sarah, who is the head of safety and sustainability at Colas Rail. So we're going to quickly meet Dan and Lena, just get to know kind of where they went to university, what they studied, before going across to Jess to meet them in more detail. So Lena, can you start us off by letting us know where you went to uni, what you studied, and when you joined Colas Rail?
I went to Loughborough University and I studied civil engineering, and I just started the September that just went.
Fantastic, thank you, Lena. And Dan, same to you.
Hi, I went to Cardiff Metropolitan University and I studied business studies. I've been on the grad scheme now since November 2021.
Okay, great stuff. Thank you very much. So yeah, slightly different stage to the graduate scheme. So Jess, I'm going to hand over to you to find out a little bit more.
Thanks, Sophie. And Sarah, I'm going to come to you first, if that's okay. Could you just tell us a bit more about your current role at Colas Rail and the team that you work in?
Yeah, hi everyone. Sarah Still, Head of Safety and Sustainability. The part of business I work in is infrastructure. So that's just one division of Colas Rail UK. And we specifically undertake renewal work, so track renewals, signalling renewals for Network Rail predominantly. However, there are other items of work we're currently undertaking, such as on-network works, which are via Network Rail, delivering to HS2 as well, in and around, let's say, the London area at Old Oak Common. It's a busy work bank of work that we deliver for Network Rail on their behalf, and we cover predominantly all of the southeast of England, the southwest as well, and go into Wales. My role, I've been within Colas now just over 3 years. Initially joined the business as head of environment, because my background is environmental. My degree, my discipline was always environmental sustainability. However, after about 1.5 years, the director for infrastructure basically asked if I'd be interested in going for the safety role as well. So I did, and was lucky enough to succeed. So I've been managing the safety and sustainability function in infrastructure since April 21. And that consists of managing 9 HSE professionals, that's health, safety, environmental professionals. We basically support the teams, the function, in understanding what are the safety risks, their environmental risks, how can we build better, sustainable solutions for the future. And obviously I've got in there an analyst that helps the team, all the stat side, all the math bits, all the numbers, understanding root causes of incidents so we can improve and obviously continually improve our performance and try and avoid and obviously eliminate those going forward. But also I've got someone who specialises in fatigue as well, because of the health and the well-being is a big aspect of the workforce, and obviously we monitor that as well. So that's a bit about me and what I'm currently doing for the business.
It sounds quite spread out what you do. That sounds quite
quite a lot.
So in the last 3 years then, in terms of the projects and things that you've worked on, have you been in this with the set team the whole 3 years then, or has that changed?
It's the same team within the same part of the business, so that hasn't changed. All the same faces. But one thing I suppose I didn't add onto that actually is in addition to my main day job role is I was appointed as the champion lead lead ambassador, you could call it, for EDI, which is Equity, Diversity, Inclusion, middle of summer last year as well. So I undertake that as well on top of the day job.
Add it to the list. So Sarah, could you tell us a bit about kind of your day-to-day stuff? So what would a typical day kind of look like for you?
Oh, well, it's very different now compared to earlier on in my career. I was on the front line in the project teams early on in my career, building together all of the report documentation, site surveys, understanding, what the risks are, and consulting with ecologists and air quality, noise consultants. But these days, it's more about managing the team. So, like, as I mentioned, the 9 people in my team, that's part of what their day job is. So for me, I'm more people management now, supporting obviously leadership teams, management teams, helping them plan and build strategies. So leading from the top down. But also for me, like a big thing I like to foster is actually getting around, for example, where I'm here today in one of the depots over in Bristol, is getting out to see the teams and the workforce, just engaging in what's happening, what's going on in your patches. Do you need me to support for anything? Something perhaps we haven't thought about, or something new that's cropped up. So yeah, I float around quite a bit all around the southeast and the southwest. So cool. Quite a bit of traveling involved as well.
Which is good. So from a graduate perspective, Sarah, you said that what you studied to what you're doing now is a little bit different, and it's something that as Gradcracker we always say to students, keep an open mind. Just because you're studying a particular thing doesn't mean that you necessarily have to work in that obvious industry sector. Did you imagine ending up where you are so far, and the experience you've had?
So early in my career I worked for the Environment Agency as a regulator on flood and coastal risk defences, involved in some big flood events around the country years ago. And I was always one of the only females within the team of men. So I always knew I liked getting my hands dirty, getting stuck in construction related type activity. But I never thought I'd end up in the railway, let alone also involved in safety as well, which for me is an environmental background. They don't normally cross over. It's honestly, in the railway, your world really is your oyster. There's so many different job roles and, opportunities that it's something I like to try and really talk about and to raise awareness, because I had no idea and I would never look back now. It's a job.
Yeah, perfect. Really interesting. Thank you, Sarah. So we're going to come back to you in a few minutes, but I'm going to stick with Dan and Lena if that's okay for now. So Dan, I'm going to come to you if that's okay, and if we could find out a bit more about your current role and what your team also looks like.
Sure. So I'm on what's called the signalling framework. So the signalling framework does exactly what it says on the tin. So we deal with all things signalling wise on the railway. I'm part of the future managers or the future leaders scheme, which Kirsty touched on earlier. And like I said, I'm a year into my development now. My role is a lot more different now, 12 months on, to what it was obviously when I started. I'm sort of given a lot more autonomy. I've assisting on multiple projects, which obviously you need to be organized and you need to stay on top of things. But the support that you get from everybody within the team, etc., it creates a really good sort of working atmosphere, and you never feel sort of ashamed or under pressure, or if you make a mistake, you don't feel vilified for it. And I think it's a really good cultural or a really good culture to work within.
Yeah, 100%, which is a great thing to mention, because as the graduate again coming in, whether you're kind of changing industries or something like that, you want to know that you're going to be in an environment which you can maybe make a mistake or something might not go wrong, but you can throw your hands up and say, I need help here, I need a bit of support, which is great. So Dan, you mentioned a bit, and tell me if I'm wrong, but almost a bit like a personal journey of the last year, and being maybe more confident in terms of doing work on your own, holding your own projects and things and things like that. How have you seen that journey over the last year, and how would you kind of describe that?
So almost as if like your training wheels start to get taken off. So you're helped within like the first 6 months. You're constantly helped. But as you sort of gain more information and you start to understand what you're doing more, you start to understand what the terminologies are, because there's lots of different terminologies on the railway, but you pick them up really quickly. As soon as you sort of within a position, people start to trust you more with your own bits, or you start to ask less questions and you take more on yourself. So I would say probably after about the 6 month period, you're sort of within a position to start, like I said earlier, have a little bit more autonomy and sort of plan your own time and plan or work within the structure of the project and put your own stamp on it, really.
Yeah, definitely. And it must be quite nice to actually reflect and think that's how far you've come in the last 12 months. It must be quite a rewarding thought to think that's, you know, what I'm doing now versus where we were.
And it flies, it absolutely flies.
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah.
Can imagine it does. So tell us a bit, Dan, about the team that you work in then. So are you with other graduates on the scheme, or is it a mix of, you know, maybe more senior members of the team and things like that? How's that work? And how's that look like?
It's a real mixture. So when I first started, there was a graduate who was in my position now, who was a year into his scheme, and he's now graduated on to be a project manager in his own right. So coming through exactly the same scheme as myself. So it gives you sort of a goal, and you can see this somebody actually going through what you've been through. So yeah, it's the production line, I suppose. But then you've got your there's a senior project manager or a production manager who sort of oversees a number of project managers within the framework, and then those project managers, then they've all got their specific projects. And as an APM, you sort of dip in and out and assist with where it's needed, if there's a gap or if there's or a little bit more sort of help needed. If one project's bigger than the other, then you'll sort of dedicate more time to that one. But within the framework, it works a little bit more differently to what it does on the Alliance, because obviously the Alliance is so vast, but the framework is a little bit more sort of condensed, or a little bit is a bit smaller.
Yeah.
So you're able to dip in and out of those different projects, which is really sort of interesting, because not one day is ever the same. So I'm probably looking at about 4 or 5 different projects at the moment, and obviously you're part of that. You've got your input, and whether that be sort of on a reporting aspect, or sort of on the tracking side of things, or you've got an input on all of it, and there's direct communication with the PMs, with the construction managers, with the commercial team. You're part of all of those meetings, because essentially you're going to be that project manager leading that project, so you need a sort of broader horizon of everything that goes on within the structure, really.
It must be nice actually knowing, not necessarily that it's mapped out for you already, because, you know, as Kirsty said, you can take so many different routes. You know, it doesn't have to all go the same, but it must be quite nice knowing it's achievable, it's going to happen, it's there, it's in touching distance. So that must be nice.
And because of that, there's also that sort of somebody's been in your position once before, so there's that, that empathy is there, camaraderie. But there's that. You're able to bounce off, and
I like that. That's good. Thanks, Dan. Lena, I'm going to come to you just quickly for introductions, because otherwise I'll end up asking Dan about projects, and you know I'll be stuck. Me and Dan will be waffling on. But thanks, Dan. Lena, I'm going to come to you just to do a quick introduction. Sorry, tell us a bit more about your role, and what life is like for you.
I'm an assistant project manager based in London, but I'm more towards the civil engineering side. So I'm basically an APM for the civils team. And day to day, it's really just leading. Again, it's a bit different to Dan, because it's my first 6 months, and I think, you know, he's a bit more into it. But so far, like, my day-to-day tasks are a bit more like just chairing meetings, making sure that I'm like reading over any assurance documents for any civil engineering works to understand them and make sure that they're all being done correctly, or just going on site to really understand what the works are. It's just the beginning stages of really just getting a grips of what's going on here in London at Old Oak Common. So yeah.
And how are you finding it? Is it what you expected? Are you loving it?
I would say that, like, again, this goes to anyone watching this. Like, I came from a civil engineering background, and even coming into Old Oak Common and High Speed 2 and my team here at Colas Rail, there was still so much to learn. So like, I guess the main takeaway is, like, you shouldn't feel like you have to have a civil engineering degree to like come into any civils team here at Colas Rail. Like people are more than happy to help you. There's been so many things that I didn't even know about when I started that I did not get to at uni, and the engineers here are more than happy to help you out. So all it really takes is just asking for help, and someone's always there to help you. So you know,
that's a really good, do you know, it seems like there's a common thread again with all of you saying similar things. You know, it's everyone just want to pull in the same direction. You want to support one another, but you've got to have the confidence to ask as well, you know, and say, I need a bit of help here, because it sounds as though there's the people there to help, which is fantastic. Lena, before kind of this live call, we did a bit of a prep call, didn't we? And it's something you've spoke a lot about, is the idea of, you know, your background, doing civil, coming into the role that you're in now, and, you know, feeling a bit like, where do I sit? Do I still like the civil side? Do I not? You know, where's it fit in your role? Talk us a bit about that, because that was a really good point that you made in our kind of prep session.
So I guess, so I'm on the Future Leaders program, but my background's a bit more technical in terms of what I'd done at university and what I was being taught. And coming in, I realized that there were so many things, so many gaps of knowledge that I had, that like either my university didn't deliver in terms of my management side, which makes sense because my degree wasn't to do with management, or like even technical stuff, there was stuff missing because I'd done a lot of design, but Colas is a principal contractor, so they do a lot of construction works. So there was gaps there. And I guess the main thing here is, sorry, could you repeat your question?
Just that you mentioned about how you can align now the kind of stuff that you've learned in your degree, with it being civil, and then into the kind of role that you are now, and how you almost, because you said in the prep session, you are almost liking now you've got that technical knowledge from your degree that you can apply it to the projects that you're working on now.
So I guess the main thing here was I would actually try to talk to the contractors engineering manager here at Old Oak Common, and I would tell him, I'd be like, oh, like I got taught this and this at uni, but I realized there's a gap here, and for me to deliver this management thing, I need to understand this. And he would sit me down and he would go through and he would teach me the technical stuff, so that way when I went into my civils meeting and I was talking to the rest of the civils team, I had a better understanding, and I could help them deliver on so much more things. So it's all about just understanding if there's any gaps in your knowledge, and just not being afraid to ask. Like you're never going to know everything. You know, so that's why it's so important. And I think Kirsty said this to me as well in my first few weeks here. Like, you're like a sponge. You need to take in all the information from everyone. So do that. And that was the best advice I got.
I love that. That's the name of the webinar. Just be a sponge. Tell us a bit, Lena, about your kind of day-to-day. So again, what's the team like that you work in? Again, is it a mix of, you know, again, seeing lots of different people? Tell us a bit about that.
So my team are really like diverse in terms of their backgrounds, where they've come from. A lot of them, similar to what Dan was saying, were previous graduates. So my line manager, who's now a project lead, came through on the Future Leaders scheme as well. So it's really nice to see how she's progressed. So day to day, I would say, because mine's a bit more specific in terms of being an APM for a specific discipline, I work a lot with the engineers on our team, but that's not limited to it. Like, for example, right now I'm currently working with the commercial team. One of the commercial leads there was also on the commercial scheme, and she was a graduate. So, you know, it's all about different disciplines that I talk to, or if I think Dan said this as well, because I'm still an assistant project manager, sometimes I'll get pulled away from the civils and I'll be put onto like a project for a few weeks to help them, whether it be like another discipline. It's all about like talking to them and liaising with them. So I guess the team is very diverse in terms of being a graduate or being very experienced and coming from a different contractor and now working for Colas. But it's all about just talking to them, networking, and seeing what you can do and what information you can get to really help deliver the jobs.
And could you tell us, Lena, quickly about maybe a particular project that you've worked on so far?
Yeah, so as of right now at Old Oak Common, we're doing some enabling works for High Speed 2. So I guess this is the major project that I've been working on. It's a contiguous piled wall, which is just like foundations, but it's a very big wall. It's a 50-meter wall that we're working on, and that's been really interesting because, again, I've been able to not only just do the construction side of it, but really like sit with Network Rail, for example, and understand the design concept phases and how that's all pushed through to like construction, and just seeing it stage to stage to stage on how it's been progressing. it's been a really good learning point for me, not only for my technical knowledge, but for my managerial knowledge as well, and how to deliver projects. It's been a good experience working on that.
Brilliant, good stuff. Dan, I'm going to come to you with a similar question about a particular project that you've worked on. Could you just tell us a little bit more detail about a favourite project that you worked on?
Okay, so as I said previous, you normally dip in and out of multiple projects, but the one, and it probably ties in a little bit to what I was talking about earlier, the one that I'm probably most proud of at the moment. So around August time last year, we were handed the task of conducting a load surveys for the western route for power cables for signaling equipment. So there were a number of defects. So we were tasked with walking the route, which was over 90 kilometers, conducting the surveys around the signaling units, addressing as to whether or not an upgrade was required, and then setting about planning how we were going to upgrade that specific equipment. That was sort of my baby, so I was given it from the ground, and we built it into a £9 million contract now, which is the thing that I'm most proud of. Obviously, it's not all me. I did that. But the initial sort of seed that, or it was my baby that was put together with the four of us, and it's snowballed, and the main contract is now due in the next couple of weeks.
Brilliant. And so in terms of start to finish, then it sounds as though you have the capacity, you almost have the right, you keep referred to as your baby, to be as involved in it as you want to be, and that is solely down to you to do that.
Absolutely. So you're given the remit. This is what is required. This is what the client requires. Can you go away and then come back with a plan? And you work closely with construction managers, with site managers, with the resource team, because you're going to need people to go out and conduct the surveys, with different departments, as Lena was saying. So you need to speak with the E&P, which is the electrical side of the railway, and you all get together. You create your plan. You put it all in place. You give it to the management. Management says, "Yeah, okay, I'm happy with this." And then you go away and conduct or start the process.
Dan, you must be proud of yourself, sat there thinking, your baby is a £9 million project that
it's a pretty cool baby.
I know, yeah. So I may have overegged the pudding a little bit. Initially, when we put our first price in, it was £9 million, but I think it's been negotiated down a little bit, but it's still a lot of money.
It is a lot of money, but in terms of your journey already, 12 months in, if someone said, Lena, I'm sure this will be you in 6 months' time, in getting involved in these kinds of projects, and the responsibility that you've got already is super exciting. So well done. It sounds really good. I'm going to come back to you, Lena, in terms of training and development. And if you could just tell us a bit about the training development that you've experienced so far in your kind of first 6 months.
So when you first start off in your Future Leaders program, there are a few things that like Kirsty or some of the other team will try to do to organize to help you out. So one thing that I got put on was like it was almost like a project management workshop for a week. Okay. So when I first started off, it was like me and the other graduate here and a few other grads that were based around Essex. We all got together, and for a week we had a project lead to just teach us, these are the presentations you would have to do, this is how you have to deliver them, these are some of the ways that we put projects together, just teaching us some of the core skills, which really helped in the end. And I guess a lot of the training you receive, apart from doing actual courses which you can go to the team HR team about, a lot of it is very on-site and in the office, day-to-day working. So I would say going out on site and actually getting on oranges and being in my PPE and going to see what this contiguous powder wall was taught me so much about what was going on. on. And I guess being very engaged, even if you're in a meeting and you don't understand what's going on, ask. Because I had that my first few weeks. I would be sat there and I'd be like, I'm a bit lost, what's going on? And the more questions I asked, the more training I got, the more I understood it. And I was like, okay, cool, now I know if I was to leave this meeting, this is what we're talking about. So it's all about those informal things, I think, that really helped push through.
I like how you call the oranges. Because I know, and I apologize if it is, but sometimes it is that stereotypical. Sometimes when you think, you think of, people on the railway track in their orange outfit, but is that what you actually call it instead of your oranges?
Sorry, my PPE.
PPE is the initial there.
That's what I meant, sorry.
So in terms of its support, then again, it sounds as though you've got that. You feel as though at every turn there is that support there. And again, it's a running theme. And I think graduates coming in, or undergraduates coming into a business, ask questions, because again, I think Sophie, you could probably back me up on this. And the people here that work out at Gradcracker, sometimes if the people don't ask, you just assume that person knows. So you can then easily get lost. So do ask. It's so important, isn't it, that you ask questions.
Absolutely.
Kirsty, I'm going to come to you a bit about chartership. You kind of mentioned it in your introduction, but it's something which I know a lot of students talk a lot about and want to have as part of their career, become a chartered either engineer or something like that. So tell us a bit about the journey that students can come on with you.
So every single one of our programs is aligned to a different chartership body, so you can go down a different route. So for example, our management program, the Future Leaders program, is aligned to the APM, so the Association of Project Managers. So every program has a development framework attached to it, which has been kind of woven in with chartership being the kind of end goal, as well as being competent in your job and getting you kind of career-wise where you want to go. So the APM is aligned with our Future Leaders program, and then obviously with engineering it's a little more kind of subjective, dependent on what your background is, what you might have studied at university, and also what your discipline is that you're working within when you join the railway. Sometimes people might have done, for example, an IMechE, mechanical engineering degree previously, and might think that actually the IMechE is the right route for them. They might end up working in signalling, and actually that's aligned with the IRSC. So they might technically find that as they kind of progress through their career, that's a kind of more logical route to go down with chartership. So it really depends, and we work with everybody individually to find the right route for them, dependent on where they're working and what they've done previously. We work with the IMechE, we work with the IET, and the IRSC, the PWAY Institute. So lots of different opportunities in terms of engineering as well for people to get chartered. And then within commercial, it's aligned to RICS, because ultimately the commercial programme is to train people and develop people to become quantity surveyors. So they go down the RICS chartership route. But I guess the key message is actually, and this is probably applicable to Lena most, because she's actually done an engineering degree as a previous background, but she's in more of a management position. So actually, as she kind of moves through the next 2 years, it's going to be a decision for Lena as to whether she kind of stays on the more technical engineering kind of pathway in terms of chartership, or whether it makes more sense if she's heading towards sort of project management as being her kind of future career, whether she goes down that route. And that's where we work with every single graduate on an individual basis to find what's right for them, being mindful that chartership can take a number of years, and hence we recognise that it's unlikely that you'll get that within your 2-year graduate programme. So we support once you've come off of the scheme to make sure that you're still getting all of that experience and exposure to gain the competencies required for chartership.
Yeah, brilliant. What fantastic support that you get. And again, it's that personalised support as well. Lena, you said you've got some big decisions to make, in the next kind of, couple of years. And it's nice to know that you've got, again, people around you that can give you that advice and support that's unique to you, which is great. Dan, I'm going to come to you quickly, just kind of moving away from the day job slightly. And could you just tell us about some activities that you've been involved in? Because I know you've got kind of an interesting story about some sports teams that you're involved in. So yeah, tell us a bit more about that. I'll let you get in.
So yeah, annually, COLAS put on a football tournament where anybody and everybody can enter a team. And basically it's a full day, which you get paid for as well.
Great.
And it's a like I said, it's a football tournament, and my team won that tournament. And then they went we then went on to a European, there was so it was specifically the railway initially, then it went on to all of COLAS, so COLAS Roads, all the other subsidiaries. We then won that tournament. We then got open out to COLAS Europe, so all the European teams came in as well. We then won that tournament, and now we're in the World Cup, which is held in Morocco. So
That is
wow,
pretty cool, isn't it?
as part of my job, which is quite nice, I'll be going to Morocco for a week to go and play football.
And it's all expenses paid, isn't it, Dan?
All expenses paid.
That is
Fantastic.
Are you sure you're actually working, Dan, or you
Are you just practicing your football all the time so you can win all the tournaments?
As long as I've got my mobile phone, I think I'm always working. Just doing kick-ups in the garden with my mobile phone.
Oh, that's cool. But I don't know if anyone else wants to add to that, because we've talked about football, but there's a lot more than that. Again, we're in the pre-chat that we all did. There's so much more. Lena, I don't know if you've got anything you want to add in terms of additional activities.
I guess the depot, I mean, in each depot, I'm assuming we'll always have socials, for team bonding. And it's really nice to go out and meet everyone. But also we do a lot of volunteering work, so especially here at Old Oak Common, in conjunction with HS2, we are going to start doing a bit more volunteering work with local schools. Fantastic. Or the community around us, just to really put ourselves out there. But that's the things that we do.
Lena's thinking, actually, right, I'm gonna get that football out now. Brilliant, good stuff. I know we're going to do misconceptions next, or preconceptions. So Steph, I'll hand back to you.
Thank you very much, Jess. Yeah, so what I want to kind of touch upon now, and I know it's a conversation that Kirsty and I have had over the years about some of the preconceptions or misconceptions, there is about working in the rail industry. And I know, Sarah, obviously, there's a lot of work that you are doing generally across COLAS Rail. So, and that you're quite keen to talk about the realities of working in the rail industry. So can you tell us some of those misconceptions, preconceptions? Some of them might be right, some of them might be wrong. Just give us an overview.
Yeah, sure, absolutely. So most definitely, let's say in years gone by, there was quite a bit of exclusion to women specifically, we could probably say, within the industry. I mean, even as far back as 2018, I think I saw Women in Rail reported that approximately a fifth of roles in the industry are filled by women, which is not a lot really, a fifth of all roles. But moving forward, obviously times are still changing, albeit there's still a lot of work to be done. There's a load more we've got to do around diversity and inclusion. However, here at COLAS Rail, it's something that we're really focused on, promoting inclusive workspaces. And that's something for me actually that attracted me to COLAS Rail, and the culture here and the people that work here and how diverse the company is. Just from experiences I've had in the past and other companies I've worked for, where let's say there was a bit of bias. Unfortunately for myself, I've had to face challenges being the only female in a room, and sometimes you walk into situations where you have to I did have to fight for my voice to be heard, and the minute you get your detail or your facts, the information across the meeting room table, like I say, it's all men in the room. It was quite daunting at first as a young woman, but that, like I say, it's years gone by, and thankfully I don't see anything or don't hear much of that happening anymore. But yeah, gosh, I even started one of my first jobs in construction, and they were shocked it was a woman that walked into the room on my very first day. But yeah, that was as a young female in my early 20s. And I think, like I say, a lot of the preconceptions are a thing of the past. Times have changed, they are still changing. And that's not just talking about women. You know, doors are open for everyone, regardless of your background, how you identify, your ethnicity. You know, all walks of life are welcome here. And like I said, Colas Real is the biggest thing that attracted me, how diverse the company is.
Fantastic. Thank you very much, Sarah. Now, Dan and Lena, before applying to Colas Rail or thinking about working in the rail industry, was there anything that you thought, okay, this is why I might not want to work there, or any misconceptions you had that have been kind of dissuaded since you joined Colas? Dan, starting with you.
I suppose the big one is work-life balance. So obviously, there's weekend works, there's a lot of night works that go on as well. But I was actually taken aback by sort of you know, the fact that there is that sort you are able to have a good balance, and you're never sort of overworked, and the only time you sort of dive in, I suppose, and really put hours in is if you want to do it yourself. You're really protected as somebody who's learning. You're not overworked or overburdened at all, because there is that support structure around you from your peers and from your superiors. And I think that's a really big one, because you do get there is a misconception in terms of the work-life balance, but that's the one thing that has really stuck out to me in terms of my job as a whole, is that I've got a really, really good and healthy balance.
That's brilliant, Dan. And I think, again, that's something that a lot of people looking into the industry would be thinking, oh, it is, you know, that work-life balance isn't as available in the rail industry as perhaps it is in other industries. But yeah, I mean, everything you've just said just kind of puts that completely to bed, hopefully, for a lot of people. Lena, anything that you thought before you joined Colas that, you know, has now kind of disappeared out of your mind?
I guess it was more to do with the application process and like where your scheme would lie. So going into the Futures Leaders program, I thought I'd be very limited in terms of just doing management stuff, and that's it. But like I've explained previously, it's like I've still managed to gain a lot of engineering experience. Currently, right now, what I'm working on is a bit more of a commercial experience. So I talk a lot to our quantity surveyors here, and I try to learn from them. So I would just say the biggest thing that I've learned from here is, again, if you ask, so many people are so willing to help you out in whatever discipline or department you want to learn more about. So just come with an open mind, and it's been the best experience through that.
Absolutely. I think that's a really good point, because I think a lot of engineers might look at, say, the Future Leaders program and think, oh, would I be better suited on the engineering scheme, which for some people will absolutely be right. But also you can go into the Future Leaders scheme and still have that kind of nice balance of the two. So I think that's a really nice message to get across for those people that are looking at Colas Rail's applications and where they might want to go, whether they're deciding commercial, Future Leaders or engineering. It's you've got the opportunities on each scheme, haven't you, to have a different experience. So that's really nice to hear. Sarah, I'm going to come back to you, because as we've touched upon, you are involved in a lot of initiatives in the business around diversity and inclusion, and also just the culture of working at Colas Rail, which I hope, as everyone's discovered, is lovely. So, but can you tell us a little bit more about the sort of things that you've got going on internally?
Yeah, sure, absolutely. So just on that very point where I think it was going back a couple of years now, Colas Rail signed up to the Railway Charter for EDI. And more recently, in the last year, we have started to roll out our We Buy initiative, which is a new network, EDI network across Colas Rail. And that's not just here in the UK, so that's globally across the group. So as I said, that's what I'm representing as the UK lead ambassador for. And essentially, we've already made good headway with a number of people that have signed up to become champions of this network, and members as well. So different requirements for both, depending on what you want to sign up to do. But essentially, it's just pulling people together and starting to say, look, you know, here's our strategy, this is the plan, but we need information, we need ideas from you. You know, where do we think we've still got some issues? What do we need to do to overcome that? And the company's fully endorsed that, fully supported it by our CPO and leadership. So they have, taken that chalice, carried it forward, because it means a lot to us here. It's not just lip service, like I say. So we know and we recognise that diverse teams actually can build better, more inclusive designs. And just thinking about what we're offering for the railway and passengers and the communities and where we operate. We want our people to represent those communities where we're working. It breeds better creativity and innovation as well, which is fundamental for keeping the railway running and for years to come as well.
Fantastic. So, yeah, absolutely. I think that's such a good point. That it's good for business, and it's great for the communities you work in. It's great for the people that you bring into the business. Just all around a great thing to do. And it sounds like you've got some great ideas moving forward there as well. And coming back to you, Dan and Lena, the experiences of the culture at Colas Rail. I mean, we have touched upon it just by everything that you've said is come across without even having to kind of specifically touch upon it. But was there anything that kind of has surprised you of the environment that you work in? Lena, starting with you.
I guess you won't be left in a corner. That was the most surprising thing, because typically, there is this, again, it goes back to what we were talking about, misconceptions and stereotypes and what you would think. You would generally think, oh, maybe a graduate might be, just in their little corner and, someone needs them, they'll grab them. But since joining, I've been very involved. It's almost as if I would say the culture rewards inquisitive nature, if that makes sense. The culture is very much, you won't get left behind. If you're in a corner, someone's going to come up to you and ask you, who are you? What are you doing here? Questions to get to know you and involve you in something. And I guess that's the main thing about Colas. It's being inquisitive, asking. Someone's always willing to teach you something. Even in my first few weeks here, I remember when I first joined meetings, the person chairing it would purposely pause at the right moment so I could ask the right questions. So it's they're very encouraging of you really getting involved. So that's the culture that I've been met with.
That's fantastic. I think that's a really nice thing to hear. And I know from working with Kirsty over the years how important early careers is to Colas Rail. And I think that kind of builds into everything that you're saying, that it's kind of inherent to everybody at Colas Rail that, we need to support the people that we're bringing into the business. We need to give them the opportunities. And, if you are a little bit shy, then we might push you, but it's all for kind of your own good. So I think that's lovely to hear. Dan, same question to you. Is there anything about that kind of the culture at Colas Rail that you'd want to highlight?
Yeah, I think it's just that that sort of the nurturing side of the team, and you never feel ashamed or embarrassed to ask questions. Everybody's pulling in the same direction, and everybody just wants you to succeed. It doesn't matter whether you're on your just starting your journey or you're 20 years down the line. Everybody is working together to achieve a common goal, and you always feel supported and like I said, nurtured to be able to get on and develop.
Fantastic. And I think that has become so apparent through the conversations that we've had so far today, not just with you, Lena and Dan, but also from your story, Sarah, of when you joined, what you're pushed to do.
Now.
Yeah, exactly. But I mean, every day is a school day, as Carla, one of our other directors, will say. She says it all the time. But I think, that's really come through. So, I mean, now we're getting to the point now, Kirsty, where I'm going to come back to you. So everyone who's watching now is obviously going to rush off and apply. So what is the recruitment process?
So you'll be pleased to hear it's quite straightforward. Actually, we try and keep it as simple as possible. So, obviously, you'll go to Gradcracker. You'll be redirected through to our website where you'll be able to make an online application. So apply, and then we review your applications. And if you're shortlisted, then you go through to undertake psychometric, which we do via gamification, which is a really good, nice, immersive way of undertaking a psychometric. And as part of doing that, you'll receive your own report as well. So it's quite a nice insight into who you are. And then once you've completed that, then the next stage would be an interview or assessment centre. If you go through an assessment centre, more often than not, you'll get the opportunity to have a second interview at one of the depots, so you can gain a really good understanding of where you're going to be working, and kind of, you know, buy into that kind of culture and understand if it's right for you. And then after that, you'll be offered, and you go through the onboarding process with us.
Very simple, which is great. Yeah, that's what we like. I think that's really nice to get out there, though, and I like doing this during the sessions, because I think application processes can be quite daunting for a graduate when you're looking to apply. So it's great to hear, look, simple, you know, you go through these processes, and then you know, fingers crossed at the end, you end up with that offer. And have you got any sort of hints and tips to putting in a really successful application, Kirsty?
Yeah, I do. And I appreciate, obviously, graduates are looking at a wide variety of different opportunities. You know, we know that, but I think my biggest tip would be tailor your application. Think about what it is about that role or that industry that particularly inspires you to want to apply for that job. So take your time over your application, because it's really obvious that applications that are kind of that come through that are considered and well thought through, and it will make you stand out. Think about, you know, your skills and what your career ambitions are, and how do they align with what you've seen or heard or read about us. You know, visit our social media pages, look at us on LinkedIn. You'll see a really good kind of view of actually what we do on a day-to-day basis. But as well, just be yourself. We want to see your personality too. You know, we get lots of applications, so we want to see who you are.
And if somebody was sat in an interview or an assessment centre, what sort of things would make them stand out during that process?
Yeah, so I guess Dan and kind of Lena have both identified actually that we're really, to succeed on these programs, you need to be inquisitive. You need to kind of be prepared to ask questions, put yourself out there, have the confidence to kind of, okay, you know what, you've been given a remit or a brief, you're going to take that and you're going to own it, and you're going to run with it, and you're going to make it a success. So, you know, think about that on an assessment centre, being able to demonstrate and showcase some of those skills, because you know, you've all had experiences in the past, whether it be work experiences through university, through school. You know, build on those experiences that make you you, and utilize them. Think about what kind of makes you different as well at assessment centres, because you know, you'll typically get asked about experiences that you've had in the past. Try and think about things that make you different as well. Love to hear things that are just, you know, just a little bit different from the norm. So think about that as well. But ultimately, just have the confidence to be you during the day, because this has to be right for you as well as it has to be right for Colas Rail. So for you to succeed, it has to be a good fit for both. So find out and be inquisitive even on an assessment centre, and ask lots of questions about the company. We've always got, you know, senior managers there, and I'm always there. We always bring graduates along, so just use it as an opportunity to kind of start that journey of being a sponge.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that's a nice thing that you said there, Kirsty. It's a two-way street, this, isn't it? You know, it's obviously you're interviewing the candidate, but in a way they're interviewing you as Colas Rail to find out whether they're right for you. And I think that's a really nice thing to have in mind. And yeah, be inquisitive, ask questions at that early stage. I think there's some really good hints and tips there. And like Kirsty said, there's loads of information out there about Colas Rail on the Gradcracker Company Hub. There's so much info we've got there about the different schemes, about projects they've worked on. So there's loads of stuff for you to find out, even kind of pre-application, and then to support you through the interview stage as well. So thank you so much for that, Kirsty. We are going to finish with a couple of quickfire rounds, which I always love. So firstly, I'm going to go around and ask everybody, what is your favourite thing about working at Colas Rail? And starting with you, Sarah.
Okay, so for me, as I've already probably touched on, it's the people, it's the company culture, the values, what they care about. It matches my own. So I know here I'm not just a valued employee, but also, you know, my ambitions are as well.
Fantastic. And Lena?
The inclusivity of the teams that I work with, the way that everyone's just really willing to get you involved, even if you don't have any experience. People just want to bring you in.
Fantastic. And Dan?
Just feeling valued in everything you do, and having a proper career path, knowing that the harder you work, the more you buy into it, and really want to learn the further you'll go within the company, because the results are already there ahead of you from people who have already gone through the scheme.
Yeah, fantastic. Thank you, Dan. And finally, Kirsty.
And the worst thing about going last is that I'm going to reiterate exactly I was going to say the people. Honestly, you can't beat it. The culture is really open. People are more than happy to kind of share their knowledge. It's kind of really retained that friendly feel. Even as we've grown, it's really not lost that feeling as a business. But I guess in terms of my job as well, I love the ethos of really wanting to grow and develop our own talent. That makes my job really rewarding. But it also, it's really clear within our business that is the case. Lena and Dan have both said, they're managed by people who've been on the graduate program before. You can see it all the way up to director level. Yeah. That's great job satisfaction for me, that I'm delivering something that the business really cares about.
Absolutely, I completely agree. And I think that's come across really nicely today. We're going to finish with a cool, interesting fact. I know Sarah's got a great one to start that kind of leads directly on from that point. So off you go, Sarah. Cool, interesting fact about Colas.
So just again, thinking about the part of the business I work in, so infrastructure. Our management team is actually made up by 40% of the staff from graduates. So yeah, they've all come through the grad scheme that Lena and Dan are now on, and potentially you might be on as well. And then specifically one of the contracts which Dan works on, actually, the signalling framework, 60% of those staff on that contract are actually all come from the early careers. So that's across all disciplines as well. So yeah, some good stats.
And that just rings true everything that Kirsty just said. So I thought that was a great one to move on to next. And yeah, so we'll continue going around with our cool and interesting facts. Lena, to you next.
Although on the surface level, Colas might just seem like a track renewal company, over the next few years and we're currently expanding on our in-house civils work. So that's something to look out for. Lots of different opportunities there. And Dan, over to you.
So I actually put it on my application form, but it's the membership within the 5% club. So it's the commitment to graduates, to apprentices, to grow and for them to learn and develop within the business. So it shows exactly why everybody's here, because there's a real commitment from Colas to grow from within.
Yeah, fantastic. Thanks, Dan. And Kirsty, over to you.
So mine's not early careers related, but a bit like Sarah, I travel quite a bit, and a couple of months ago I got the chance to visit rail services in Rugby, the depot there, and I had the opportunity to board the new rail milling machine, which is essentially a really big train. But what's pretty cool about it is that the machine is so clever and so complex that it's worth £6 million. So
wow,
that's
just
cool.
one machine. Yeah,
it blew my mind. So far away from my day job, but really, really cool. Yeah.
Fantastic. Thank you, Kirsty. Thank you, everyone, for giving us such a great insight into what it's like to work at Colas Rail today. It's been really great hearing all your stories and hearing kind of all your anecdotes. It's been really lovely. Now, remember, everybody, the recording of this webinar will be available for you to watch later this afternoon on the Colas Rail Company Hub and in the Gradcracker Career Centre. We'll also break this up into bite-sized chunks for you to kind of watch as little highlights. And remember, our employers absolutely love it when you tell them that you've watched their webinar, as they know that means that you've already got a really good understanding of their company, and it shows you have a real interest in working for them. So make sure you go get your applications in for Colas Rail and let them know you were here or that you've watched the recording. So next week we have a break from the webinars before coming back for our final webinar of the season on the 16th of February, where we're going to be joined by CERN. So make sure you head to the Career Centre now to register for that webinar. Thank you once again to Colas Rail. It's been absolutely lovely speaking to you all. And yeah, we'll see you soon. Bye for now.
Thanks, everyone.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye. Bye.